So our first topic in the subject numerical solutions to CE problem is what we call the matrix. So our objective in our topic is that after completing this module, the learners will be able to first define the matrix, second to discuss the notations, dimensions, and kinds of matrix, third to compare the different kinds of matrices, fourth, to identify and discuss the operation involving matrices, and lastly, to perform operations involving matrices correctly. So what is matrix? Matrix is a rectangular array of numbers called elements arranged in m rows and n columns enclosed by a bracket. So we have here an illustration of what we call matrix. So that is m by n. So these are the elements. And this m represents the number of rows, and this n represents the number of columns. So we have to first know. So our first topic in numerical solutions to CE problem is what we call the matrix. So our objective here in our topic is that after completing this module, the learner will be able to first define what is matrix, second, to discuss the notation, dimension, and kinds of matrix, third, to compare the different kinds of matrices, fourth, to identify and discuss the operation involving matrices, and lastly, to perform operation involving matrices correctly. So what is matrix? Matrix is a rectangular array of numbers called elements arranged in m rows and n columns enclosed by a bracket. So we have here an illustration of what we call matrix. So this A11, A12 are the elements of matrix. So this m represents the number of rows, this n represents the number of columns. So in learning matrix, we have to know the matrix notation, the different kinds of matrix notation. So first, matrix notation is what we call the matrix elements. So we have to consider this matrix below, in which matrix elements are represented entirely by symbols. So in this illustration, matrix element is represented by symbol, but these actually are numbers. So we have here yung A11. So yung unang 1 po natin, yung subscript ng A, this refers to the row number. Yung second subscript natin, yung 1, this refers to the column number. So ito, yung A12, this refers to the first column, yung column number, row number natin. Yung second subscript natin is refer to the number of column, and so on. So we have here, pag ito, A21, that is the elements in row 2 of the column 1. So ito. So yung unang subscript natin, yung row number, yung second subscript natin, yan yung column number natin. Or we can write it in A1, 1, or this is the same. So the second notation is the matrices. So here, in our illustration, this represents the matrix. So matrix A, yan, matrix A is equal to 2 by 4 matrix. Since yung 2, yan yung number of row natin, yung 4, yan yung number of columns. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So matrix A is a 2 by 4 matrix. Matrices, yan. So the matrix dimension or its order, so defines its size, and it basically refers to the number of rows and columns inside the matrix. So each entry is called matrix element or elements of matrix. So we have here an example. of matrix. Yung matrix A natin. So what is the matrix dimension of our example? So ano yung matrix dimension natin? So dimension, we have 1, 2, 3. 3 rows. 1, 2. 2 columns. So our matrix dimension here is 3 by 2. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So 3 rows, 2 columns. So the matrix elements. So, ano naman yung matrix element natin? For example, ito, yung 1. Yung 1 natin, tawag dyan is the element in the first row, since this is first row, the element in the first row of the first column. So we have here, the element in the first row, first column is A11, yung subscript 1 natin, yung number ng row, yung second subscript natin, yung number ng column. So, first row, first column, first row, first column, that is 1. Yan yung matrix element natin sa 1, 1. So, yung element in second row, second column naman is element of A22 is equal to 3. So, bakit? So, we have here the element in second row. So, 1, 2. Ito yung second row natin. The element of second row of the second column, second row, 1, 2, second row of the second column, 1, 2, ito po yung element natin sa A22. So, tawag dyan, the element in second row of the second column is equal to 3. And so on. So, yung 4 naman, that is the element in 1, 2, 3. The element in the third row of the second column, yung 4. So, what about the number 2? So, that is the element in the third row of the first column. So, ganyan po yung element natin, yung matrix element. So, let's have an example. So, in our example, we have to determine the dimension of the given matrix. So, we have here, our first example, we have here the given matrix. So, what is the dimension of this matrix? So, we have 1, 2, 3. 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. 3 columns. So, the dimension of this given matrix is 3 by 3 matrix. Since we have 1, 2, 3, 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, 3 columns. So, let's have a second example. Determine the dimension pa rin. So, the dimension of this example, 1, 2, 1, 2. So, 2 rows, 2 columns. So, the dimension of the matrix is 2 by 2. So, our third example. Dimension pa rin tayo. So, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So, that is 2 by 3 matrix. Since we have 1, 2 rows, 1, 2, 3, 3 columns. So, that is a 2 by 3 matrix. So, our fourth example. So, ano yung dimension natin sa fourth example natin? We have 1, 2, 3, 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 columns. So, that is a 3 by 4 matrix. So, ganyan po yung example natin for dimension. In determining the dimension, just count the number of rows, yung una, and then the number of columns. So, we have here an example 2. So, sa sample 2 natin, we have to find the matrix elements or the values as below from the given matrix. So, we have here matrix A. So, ano ito? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A 4 by 7 matrix A. So, we have to determine the element in first row of the first column. So, ano yung element ng first row, first column natin? We have first row, ito yung first row natin. Ito yung first first column natin. So, ano yung element in first row of the first column natin? That is equal to 2. So, ito yun. So, second, we have to determine the element in the third row of the second column. So, third row of the second column. So, 1, 2, 3, third row, second column, 1, 2, second column. So, we have the element in third row of the second column is equal to 3. Third, the element in the fourth row of the seventh column. So, fourth row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 6, 7. So, we have here the element in the fourth row of the seventh column is equal to 25. Our next example, we have to find the value of the element in first row of the third column divided by the element in the first row of the second column. So first, we have to identify the values of these elements. So yung element in first row of the third column natin, first row, third column, 1, 2, 3, is negative 9. Negative 9. Yun yung value ng ito. So ano naman yung element ng first row, second column natin? So we have first row, second column is 1. So we can write that as negative 9 over 1. So this is the value of the element in first row of the third column, and this is the value of the element in first row of the second column. So yung value natin dito, that will be equal to 9. We have here also an example. So find the value of the square of the element in the fourth row of the fourth column. So ano yung element natin sa fourth row of the fourth column? So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 8. So the squared of 8, yan po yung value natin ng squared ng element in fourth row of the fourth column. We have here 64. Okay. We also have here vectors. Vectors are number inside the bracket of a matrix, can be in row or in column. And scalar naman is a number like 4, 2, 9. Scalar ang tawag doon, and vectors, the numbers inside the bracket of a matrix. So, naka-bracket siya ng matrix. So, we have here an example. So, yung scalar, that is the number alone. The vector, either in row or in column. Yan yung vector natin. And syempre, yung matrix natin, yung rows times columns. So, we have 2 by 3 matrix dito. So, a vector, yung vector, pwede siyang maging matrix. So, itong vector, pwede siyang matrix. So, we also have here the kinds of matrices. First, the column matrix. So, the column matrix is the matrix with only one column. So, we have here an example of a column matrix. So, isang column lang yung ating matrix. So, that is 3 by 1 matrix. 3 rows and 1 column. We also have what we call the row matrix. So, matrix with only one row. So, we have here an example. So, isang row lang yung ating matrix. So, that is 1 by 4 matrix. 1 row, 4 column matrix. That is a row matrix. So, isang row lang siya. Matrix with only one row. We also have the square matrix. So, a matrix where the number of row and columns are equal. So, dapat equal yung number of rows and number of column. That is a square matrix. So, we have here an example. Yung row natin, yung number of row natin, dalawa. 1, 2. And yung number of column natin, 1, 2. So, that is a 2 by 2. That is a square matrix. Pag tatlo yan, tatlong column, dapat yung tatlong row, dapat yung column din niya is tatlo para 3 by 3 matrix para maging square matrix yung ating matrix. So, we also have here a zero matrix. So, zero matrix where all elements are zero. So, pag lahat ng element ng ating matrix is zero, tawag natin dyan is zero matrix. So, lahat ng element ng E, zero matrix ang tawag natin dyan. So, 2 by 3 matrix or 0 of 2, yung number of rows, and 3, yung number of columns. We also have here the identity matrix. So, identity matrix, the square matrix by definition, which contains only values of 1 in their main diagonal. So, we have here an example of identity matrix. So, sabi niya dito, dapat square matrix. So, dapat parehas yung number of rows and number of columns with a value of 1 dito sa diagonal. So, lahat na ng ibang elements ng ating matrix is 0 except yung sa diagonal na dapat 1. So, this is a 3 by 3 matrix, identity matrix. Yan. So, pag apat ang row, dapat apat din yung column. So, dapat magdadagdag pa kayo ng 1 dito para 1 lahat ng diagonal niya. That is an identity matrix. And lastly, the additive inverse matrix. So, additive inverse matrix is a matrix whose elements are the negative of another matrix. So, we have here matrix G. We have here an element of matrix G. So, pag sinabi nating additive inverse matrix, yung negative ng matrix, ito. So, pag positive yun, naging negative. Yung negative, naging positive. That is the inverse of another matrix, additive inverse matrix yung tawag dyan. Yung kabaliktaran ng matrix. So, pag negative G ito, magiging positive G ito. Ganun. So, that is what we call an additive inverse matrix.